Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to day 2 of Missing Scenes. All right, so I hope you guys had your lunches, and if you haven't, no worries, because feel free to eat while joining with us on this session, because that's online, right? So anyways, my name is Ryan, the co-leader alongside Ao Xiong for the event, and I'll be your host for today's session. All right, so now before we dive right into the session, some house rules before we begin. All right, some house rules. So do mute your mics because we want as much as we might love to hear your voices, but as the speakers are speaking, to pay respect to them, do mute your mics. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. And of course, you're more than welcome to turn on your cam to join in the fun. All right, so also be sure to check out our student work virtual exhibition from both the bachelor's and master's class of March 2021. So yeah, do join us on this exhibition on www.taylorsartgrad.com. And if you are looking to ever find the link, feel free to click the link on our Insta bio or in the chat as my team will share to you in a bit. All right, so that's enough for promotional. So let's kickstart today's session. So what's today's session about? Well, the unseen value, potential of forgotten buildings. As the title mentions itself. Today, we're going to highlight the abandoned buildings that are often blended into plain sight and showcasing their potential. So today we have two very, very, very amazing and outstanding speakers here to talk about their works involving adaptive reuse, which ultimately leaves positive social impact to not just the site, but also to the users itself. All right, so without further ado, let's kickstart our event today by welcoming our first speaker of the day, Architect Tan BU. So Architect BU is currently an active academician with University Science Malaysia, teaching architectural design at School of Housing, Building and Planning. He is the course creator of Design Thinking for Future Innovators. Her other areas of expertise are wellness, elderly housing design, impacts of architecture on dementia, high-rise design, urban design, modular design, adaptive reuse, and passive design of natural lighting. And she is also a professional and principal architect registered with Lembaga Architect Malaysia, LAM, under Biltan Architect, BETA. For 2 consecutive years of 2020 and 2019, Architect BU won PAM Awards in the gold category of adaptive reuse and alterations/addition respectively. Architect BU also founded an ongoing event series of Pecha Kucha Night Penang in 2017, a copyrighted event platform originated from Tokyo, celebrating the art of concise presentation of 20 images x 20 seconds. So with that introduction, let's give her a warm welcome. And with that, the floor is yours, Architect BU.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you so much. I think you guys are doing a great show since yesterday. I just mentioned to obvious, really very impressive. Dr. V should be very proud. Very engaging, world-class content, I must say. Thank you, Ryan. Very, very privileged to be here. Thank you for having me. Can I share screen now, Ryan?
Yeah, you're more than welcome to, I think. Yeah, you can share screen now.
Okay. So I like the theme very much. I thought it's very current and it's very mature for students to actually have that empathy to look out for forgotten buildings. Okay, are you seeing my screen?
Yep.
Full screen?
Still not in presentation mode. I'm just seeing the PowerPoint at the moment.
Let me try again.
Okay, no worries.
All right. Okay, now?
Clear. Very, very clear.
Okay, good. Ready to go?
Ready to go.
Okay, so the topic that I was invited to speak on is forgotten buildings. And when I had a discussion with Obvious, I say, well, why not, can I just talk about giving second life to old buildings? So for students audience today, I'm just going to run through the whole spectrum of what is adaptive buildings from A to Z as fast as I can. I'm given half an hour, so let's see if I can do that in 30 minutes. So seeing the unseen from the eyes of a practicing architect and also academician, my background is quite unique. I've been practicing for almost 16 years before I decided to teach. So my 16 years, I was doing from high-rise projects. My last 8 years before I started teaching I was working on high-rise projects in KLCC. I was in Singapore for 4 years and had a big whirlwind adventure outside Malaysia before I decided to come back and settle down. So these are images of me, with my students. So my teaching style are pretty different. I like to take my students out. Over here, I brought my students back to Singapore, where I used to work there for quite a few years. I brought them to visit my old office. I took them out because to me, the best classroom is not in the classroom for architecture students at least. So when I teach about natural lighting, I really take them out to buildings with natural lightings to fully understand. So that's a little bit of intro of my background. So you can see me as like half an academician and half a practitioner. And one of my motivation to go back to teach is to bring the practice back into academia. So yesterday's Alina's sharing was quite impactful to me. So today, we want to talk about what is this whole issue about adaptive reuse. So self-explanatory, logical, integrate, adapt, and reuse. Reuse buildings, old buildings. So it's not exactly the same as restoration, conservation, alteration, and addition. These are slightly different, probably safe for another talk, another day. But generally today, I want to just focus on this whole importance of adaptive reuse, right? So it's literally, probably most of you will know this, an abandoned building, an old building which have kind of like exceeded its first life. Probably it was purpose built for a house, right? And the first owner has ceased to be staying there, and it no longer has any need to be a house. So two options for buildings like this. Now, to me, buildings are also like live human beings. When you reach your end of life for a building, do you terminate or you give it a second life? So I never really imagined that I'll be, venturing or, having this passion for adaptive reuse. I was doing always new projects. And the first adaptive reuse that I worked on really blew me away on the importance of reusing, right? So I'm going to run you through a few other aspects of adaptive reuse. So after knowing what is adaptive reuse, literally reuse old buildings and adapt. So it's not the same as conservation, all right? Conservation is being very faithful, very loyal to its original character and literally preserve 100%. Now, adaptive reuse has a little bit higher complexity because it challenges you to adapt, give a new life, and usually the new life is more relevant, more engaging, and more impactful because cities change, right? So before we go any further, and I always want to teach my students on why, whenever you deal with new knowledge or whenever you're pursuing something on a new typology, always ask why you're doing it, okay? So what's the whole big deal about adaptive reuse, and is it something of a new trend? will the new trend go away? Is this something of a romantic idea of, always treasuring the past? Why save old buildings? Why take the trouble? And why not just build new? So this is one of my favorite image since last year. And I've been, talking to my students as frequent as I can on this reminder that we are still in 2021, we are still grappling with COVID. In Penang, things are not as nice as it looks at. So it's still quite a serious situation in Penang where I'm talking from. So we are looking at, there's just not one curve we're actually trying to flatten. After this, there's economic crisis, there's recession looming, and further than that, there will be the climate crisis by 2030. Everyone talks about this, but how many of us truly grasp and really feel it? So now global warming is real. We start to see all the heat temperature, all the irregular weather. So these are really pertinent, relevant issues that all architecture students should be aware of. Architecture has the power to impact the world that we live in. And I always, drive this through to all my students. So, 39% of the global carbon emission comes from building. And from that 39%, 11% actually comes from building materials. And so if we can build less, that's where the numbers come from. If we can build less, we can actually contribute less carbon emission to the global Earth. So that seems a very small percentage, you may say, but if everyone starts to do your part, and at least there is a change happening, and at least that's our small role in making the world a better place. And this is another statistic where it says, by 2060, we are building more. The population is growing more, and there will be building more. And, so what can we do? So that is why the global paradigm shift have gone into looking at all the abandoned buildings around the world. All those abandoned buildings have values in them. And which is why I love the team, which is very cleverly crafted, seeing the unseen. And it's literally, having some empathy in us as designer to see values that many owners do not see. So why adaptive reuse? I won't read every point, but literally there's 5 key impacts that if we do this, it's definitely, having a better impact on the environment. It costs less, but it's not easier, okay? So let's try to focus on the positive. It costs less because you save the demolition and you save time. And if you are spending, say, if you're doing community buildings where you're using public funding, you want to build in a faster way, you save the public funds, right? And don't spend so much and on complex new construction when you can do a clean sweep of all the old buildings in the city and convert them into meaning spaces for the community. And at the same time, you can preserve the local identity and the sense of place, because these old buildings are always like a kind of like they have a glorious past. They have a story to tell. And by reactivating these old buildings into something meaningful, the sense of place becomes activated. So these are all win-win. And of course, the 5th one is, revitalize the urban context. So I can't say, that this is something very relevant for all young architects to kind of embrace. It's not easy for everyone on all the stakeholders in Malaysia to embrace this, because adaptive reuse is not as easy as it looks. So how do we start with handling this tricky affair of rebooting an old building? is to me giving like old grandma new legs, new steel bones, and to give a second life, a second more meaningful life to the old building. I wanted to share this very clear step by step. I know being a student, but I just feel everyone should always remember, designers, yes, we are creative, but we need to always think. We always need to at least ask a lot of questions on why is this always this. So I share with you here 4 basic thinking steps. And number 1 is empathy. So empathy for the world, empathy for the human users of our buildings. Now I have to, my personal principle is being humble, because architecture is second. Architects should not have the ego of, doing an icon, because we want to have things look nice. So nature is first, architecture is second, and we are designing a building. Human users should be our first priority. So empathy for the user. So in context of adaptive reuse, the brief will definitely target a certain group of users. Are they the public community? Are they in big crowds? Are they of different age? So you have to empathize on the type of user that's going to be using this building that you want to adapt. And then you go to the second stage of, you have to then define the problem of the existing building, right? And also problem that the brief is trying to address. So defining the problem takes skills, experience, and a lot of sensitivity, because you need to just keep on practicing, go out there and know your technical knowledge. I felt I was using my high-rise technical knowledge to deal with rescuing old buildings, because you need to know your services. You need to know how to intervene. And once you understand the problems, for example, you know that the house is too dark, ventilation is no good, then you have to come up with the solutions and how you want to do this in your architectural intervention. And solutions should be, for adaptive reuse, it's literally, you should be as creative as you can. There's no rules. So many of my friends were quite surprised when from 60-story high-rise, my last completed project was 60-story high-rise in KLCC. And I moved to rescuing old buildings. And I thought it's literally almost the same skill. And finding solutions can be derived from the buildings, from the context, or can be injecting a new, bold approach into rescuing the old building. Okay, so when you have an idea, especially on trying to turn around that old abandoned space, just go as wild as you can, soar as high as you can in terms of creativity, and aim for quality, look for that wow ideas that can make a big impact. But that's what, architecture should be. Bring positive impacts, right? So the last stage is, doing a prototype, which is what we do. I feel a lot of us as designers, from studying days to practicing, we do this, but I just start to map this out in my recent teaching years, and so that the students see a very clear kind of like step by step. We used to do this intuitively, but with these 4 steps, it's non-linear. Means you can actually go back. When you reach prototype and you test and it doesn't look right, then you go back to fixing your idea solution. Okay, so prototype and test is really the reason of why we always encourage students to do models, and not just 3D models. It's hardcore, old school model, meshing model, physical model. These are some of the works done by my students, and I teach them to study the models at eye level. If it can be this small, But the whole purpose of models, many of our young architects forget, it's different than doing a 3D simulation. Models are meant to be studied under the sun, under the correct direction, because you want to test how your shadow works. So this module was carried out to teach the student on how to manipulate their patterns, put it under the sun, and I get them to go out there again on the evening sun, on the morning sun, and literally see the power of their form affecting the shadows and lights. So quick 4 steps of the thinking approach, because you can use this for any architectural intervention, but I thought for adaptive reuse, it's quite easy to understand when I discuss this. So architecture is one of the most demanding profession out there. It's complex, but at the same time, to me, when it's complete, it can be as rewarding, as exhilarating, because it really activates your right brain, your creative intuitiveness. And then it also requires your left brain of logical thinking to project manage, to get submissions. So yesterday's talk was very interesting, you know, when you get too rigid into a professional service. So I thought this is where students need to remind ourselves that architects are, you know, arts and science, we have to do both. So coming back to adaptive reuse of, I just wanted to share. Now, across the globe, there has been a lot of iconic projects where old buildings are rescued. So I just want to share this because I need to kind of like map this out and show you the diversity. The possibility is endless. You can literally take any old spaces with creativity, you can turn them around. Okay, there is no fixed recipe, there is no fixed rules. For example, saying, oh, only a house can be adapted, not this, not that, is no rules. So the first example, a lot of Apple fans here, I'm sure. The first example is Apple Store in New York. So this is an existing factory, a warehouse, industrial factory, abandoned, 13,000 square feet of space, that's huge. And of course, Apple occupies it into their current Apple Store. Beautiful space, double story, double volume is restored. And there's a value in turning this place around. So it rejuvenates the whole urban fabric with one project. And then the second example is, this is really, really bold. This is formerly a grain silo in Cape Town. And they are now turning this into a museum of contemporary art of Africa by Thomas Heatherwick. Well, interesting trivia is Thomas Heatherwick was never really trained as an architect, but he is now doing brilliant works of architectural intervention, one like this. So interestingly, you know, look at how the architect challenges and respects the constraint of an existing structure, including the silo. So it was adapted into meaningful spaces of gallery appreciation. And the next iconic project, this goes very far back. You guys will probably read it in the Malaysian news headlines. Battersea Power Station. Now, it originally is a coal fire, is a power station. Those days in 1955 is you know, power is generated by coal. So from a former power station, right now it's going through massive transformation, going into a really kind of a high life residential mixed development area. And they just launched this in May 2021. The apartments, these are all real photos. So the apartments are residing in one of the chimneys, and one of the chimney tops, they are, you know, making like a rooftop. So there you go, how adaptive reuse can really salvage large abandoned buildings and turn it around. And you keep the old stories and then, you know, invent it into new. So that is really the whole essence of adaptive reuse. Another example is Google campus in LA. And this is where they used to park the planes, right? The photo on the left. So Google took over, Google being Google, they've, you know, transformed it into a Google campus. So it's definitely another example, fine example of how adaptive reuse by architects can make a difference. Rex KL, I thought I want to add something of a local front. And we all know Rex KL and its whole story of, turning from a cinema into a really meaningful, happening event space. So these are 4 iconic transformations across the globe. I curate it so that we kind of like get, I hope it really excites you about the whole idea of adaptive reuse. So I always remind my students that this motto is very meaningful to me because in adaptive reuse, it's so easy to give up because there's so many constraints. And but to really achieve good results, like extraordinary, meaningful results from an old abandoned building to something different, we just have to keep on asking, there's definitely a better way to do it. Let's just find it to solve. So I hope that keeps one of your takeaway for my talk today. So the organizers request that I share one or 2 case studies of my work. And Penang Digital Library was completed in 2019, a year before the pandemic hit in 2020. So just a quick share of the story of how it began. The brief given was quite simple. The client, the stakeholder, had this wild idea of, let's do a new building of library without books, okay? And no one has done library without books. So there's no reference, there's no case study. The library without books in the world are all mostly a computer corner in the existing old library, where you have the books in the cloud. So for this, the brief was, we want a new building and it's going to be a library, but no books. Where are the books? The books are in the cloud server. You go in, you read from your device or you read from the iPads given. So if I fall this back on, the whole design phases, number one is you just have to understand and empathize the need of the user. So that was the whole set of brief. They just want that space. And we as architects were challenged on how to create the definition of a library without books. So started off with looking at the problems of the current conventional library, the ones that we are used to. Books, and books, no windows. This is what I remember from my public library visits those days. Yeah? So generally a lot of public libraries are really struggling to keep traction because I think of the ambience. So conventional library also takes up a lot of space, takes up manpower, and because of the old school way of processing of borrowing, returning. So that was the problem addressed, okay, and laid up onto the site. So architecture is really complex in many levels because first you have to study the brief, you have to understand the need, and then you have to go to site because you're going to have a building land on the site there. So this is the original site before any building was done. The site was in Penang Free School compound. Penang Free School, one of the oldest school in Malaysia. So this was about 1 acre vacant land. All right, all these are existing trees, and it just happens to have the trees are at the fringe, and there's this vacant lawn. One of those colonial bungalow houses those days, which has very spacious lawn for, I don't know, for events and activities. So, and this is another view of the other corner of the site. So it's 1 acre land and one 2-story bungalow house sitting there. Now, this is the first day of my site visit. Exactly this condition when we went. Windows at the top floor are already falling off. It was vacant for a few years. It has its own issues, own stories, own problems. I will not share too much here. So, but the building struggled and has almost come to an end of its life. The recent occupier it was used briefly as an office, but that didn't last long. And so the brief actually allowed the architect to demolish the building if the architect feels that is appropriate. So, that gave me a shock. I was like, why do you want to demolish it? Because it's quite in a poor condition, questionable roof strength and integrity, because they can't really go up and check. So they felt the architect should decide whether you want to keep it. If you feel you can't keep it and you have a better idea to just put in a new library block, the architect is given the free hand. So during that site visit, most of the time I listen very carefully when I visit every site. Listen not just to the brief or not to the client speaking, but listen to the site in terms of listen to the sensation, the noise, if there's any. Just be present when you go to the site visit. Take deep breath and you just feel your intuition working. What are the vibes that you get? So the vibes that I got was birds chirping, very peaceful. At the distance, I could hear roads zooming by at the main road, but the calmness was immediate. So I stood there. I let the client's group walk to other place. I just stood there and just pay attention to what the site really needs. And immediately then on the site visit, it is true story, I'm not making this up, but most of the ideas to transform a building comes from site for me, okay? It doesn't happen when I go back to office or I go back to research. It usually comes honestly from whatever I feel, whatever you call it, intuition, sixth sense, but I felt that immediately that site is a lovely place to be a library in a park. So can you imagine this scene where the client's entire group has gone up into the building and they're calling me to join them. And when I joined them, I said, I think we should do a library in the park. So that ideation immediately was formed. And I said, yeah, because this is exactly a park, why ruin it? And after a tour of the 2-story building, it almost an instant decision. I said, no, I think we should keep it at all costs. So everyone got nervous because it was quite a lot of work to do. And I was nervous by the nervous reaction, because I had no idea what I'm going to get myself into. So, and so we started looking at the massing of the 2-story heritage bungalow. And again, how I derive ideas and concept is literally like a flowing layers, and they overlap and intertwine, and then they merge and fuse. So I remember I said it has to be a library in the park. So I set rules instantaneously at that site visit. I set design rules in my head. I said no trees are to be chopped. I'm not a tree hugger, friends would know, but I react according to site. It's as if the site speaks to me. And what I hear was, we can't cut any of this tree. All these trees are to stay, except for those small garden shrubs of bamboo. I said we'll relocate them. So we actually relocate the bamboos, clear the middle, and whatever middle sprawling lawn that we can find, that's where our building is. So you can see on the screen, it's kind of like a breaking down of the components. So one, we have the existing mansion, which the architect, which I crazily, boldly say, no, you have to keep, because library is about stories to tell, and what you're going to tell when the mansion is gone. So I was formerly a Penang free student. For being a girl, I spent 2 years there in Form 6. So I felt a bit of sentiment. I said, no, we can't tear down at all costs. We have to rescue it. It has a lot of story. It used to be the headmaster's residence. Ex-students remember the place. So I said, you have to keep. I said, we have to just make the buildings as humble as possible. add on 2 blocks, probably intertwined, hung a basin in the middle, and that's it. The design intention was clear. It was not chaotic. That was the 4 rules, and it was done very decisively. So if you remember our design phases, there's this phase called prototype. Now, I'm very old school, I'm very hands-on. I don't get the satisfaction of studying shadows in Lumion or Twinmotion, and I know Twinmotion now can do quite accurately shadow simulation, but I really have to just get on to, get a model done. And this was brought to site and set to the actual orientation to site. If you look carefully, and those shadows were studied very, very meticulously before we finalized this. So if you remember the prototype and test, so this was the testing, and I took it to site. I spent quite a long time, sweating, sweltering under the sun, and I said, I have to do this. And then we literally prop it up and study every space. Like this is first, I had the theory that I studied the north, south, east, and west. I studied where the sun is coming up. You just stand there on site, and I go site almost quite often, morning, afternoon, evening, because for adaptive reuse, you really need to know how the site behaves. So I was there as frequently as I can. And then I had this theory that if I were to place this building here, this building there, by afternoon, this site will be shaded. By morning, this site will be shaded. So if you can see, we placed the hall here, and this was the morning sun. And the annex was right on top of it, which is the reading space. It's straddled along morning east and afternoon sun of west, so that there's no direct sun coming in. These are all pretty textbook stuff, right? If you learn your passive ventilation and passive lighting, because as I teach, I also felt the obligation that I have to walk the talk. So this is a classic, very easy way, So I made sure the reading booth along here do not face morning, do not face evening. And the evening sun comes a little bit like here. If you can see the north point, so the model here is accurate. So the north point is here. So the western sun comes at the diagonal. So I decided that, okay, then blades are to be there, because then it will taper off the evening sun. So all this was really intensely figured out, even at modeling stage. So I like that the existing bungalow had 7 quarters, and we added this wisdom street next to it. So we knew that it's shaded because of the model testing. And first, this is in good old SketchUp from the model. I'm quite confident after doing the model. I said, all right, it should work. Okay, let's draw it up in SketchUp, because that's detailing, and detail it to scale. So even in SketchUp, I always advocate accuracy and faithfulness to the detail. Okay, and from SketchUp to the actual, you can see it's almost similar, because that was how careful the tweaking and all the massaging went. And the spaces that created this, the new building, celebrates lighting. And the one of the criteria that I was very careful at is, not to empower the old building, the old mansion. So the old mansion was restored into reading spaces. No books, because this is library without books, but another new brief has been recreated by us to turn it into a community space of reading spaces, discussion rooms, and we kind of like play a lot with shadow casting throughout the whole building. And one of the biggest impact that we've introduced in the library typology, library without books, is abundance of natural lighting. So many first batch visitors went in, and they were really surprised that it feels so nice and bright naturally inside. So that is the simple commitment as a designer and architect, that if you have a vision, be bold, and it's really about, pushing through your simple ideas. So when the project completed, of course, I brought my students here. We did a design crit in the building itself, and it was really an amazing experience for me and my students, because it was so easy to teach about natural light, because they could see the sun behave with all the shadows that the building was playing up. So what's next? I've so-called rescued quite a few buildings in the last few years. I'm going to be presenting the full scope of the whole journey and story in November in Datum Talk. So I hope you guys can join me then, where I will be running through this whole typology that I've been very lucky and grateful to be involved, where there is a bungalow that we changed to a communal hub, and also a water tank utility building that we changed into an office. So that is our own local way of trying to make a difference in Penang. And this is end portion. My tips to all students here, most of you are graduating, right? So congratulations for completing your first chapter. Just remember that creativity and innovation are not the same thing, okay? So on one hand, yes, you want to be creative, okay? But you have to understand that creative is just thinking of new ideas, okay? But being innovative, innovation is about doing new things. It's always about asking why. And that is where adaptive reuse comes in, it's about reinventing old abandoned spaces. So you now say, all right, architects are creative, but I say that, architects must be creative. Okay, know that we are the leader when we go out there as consultant, because we want to be the design champion. We want to be the thinker. And if we are not the one doing the design thinking, if we are not the one doing the design, who else will be doing it? The engineers are not going to do design. So architects must be creative. Architects must be innovative, at least to make the world a better place, guys. So how my tips to my students, actually, just be yourself, be curious, and always ask questions about, even ask yourself, like, why are we doing this? Why nobody thought of that? Because if you are able to thought of that, you'll probably be the first one to solve a problem that nobody bothered to look into, So for your venture ahead in your career, you are probably looking for jobs, you're probably looking for a mentor, you're probably looking for travel after COVID clears. Just be original if our path crosses again. But if not, my advice to all students is be original, have integrity, ask why. Is there a better way to do how things are? You really need to be a bit more thought-provoking, and don't be a parrot. Come out to the working world, because everyone is doing that. Why, reinvent the wheel? So no, I think we should reinvent the wheel. Think big, aim to change the world, and that's who we should be. Architects who make a difference. All right. So that's my final line. I exceeded a bit of time, apologies. So I hope there's a few good takeaways from my short talk. Thank you so much. Back to you, Ryan.
All right. Oh my God. Yeah. Thank you, Architect VU. That was really, really an amazing sharing session.
Did I go too fast?
No, it's all right. I think you cover a lot of things in this short amount of time, and I think that was really, really awesome. So I think, yeah, we'll kickstart this Q&A session. And by the way, just saying that it was really, really inspiring. And like, as you were explaining, I felt like I felt your perspective, I felt like how much detail, how much attention you pay into like the spatial quality. Like you really, really understand like how do you feel. So I think I'll start with the Q&A session by asking like, because it's like adaptive reuse, and you want to remain the bungalow, like, were there any elements remain from that bungalow within those internal spaces? Because I saw like those internal spaces were like very, very new and modern. Like, so were there any elements remain from the bungalow?
Yeah, probably I didn't because I was trying to leave it in a half an hour, but yes, the internal structures were retained because the bungalows was built according to load-bearing wall, means there's no column. The walls were the structure supporting the roof. So the walls, most of the load-bearing walls had to be kept. Probably I will share more of the photos in my next talk. But to answer your question, yes, one of the key consistent element in all the buildings that I rescued is most of the structures are retained. And the creative part comes from reinventing how the spaces breathe and how it receives light. And most importantly is what kind of user that's coming to the building. So it's a whole complex relationship, but I think that's what makes architecture's job more interesting.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, thanks for answering that question. We got a question here in Slido. So when it comes to heritage buildings, right, or any structures with historical value, like the subject is often iffy, especially amongst the local community. Like, I think similar to your project, like they were like giving you the permission, like, hey, if you think it should be demolished, then you can go ahead and demolish, right? So like, where's the question again?
Oh, there's so many questions. You pick one. Which one?
Yeah. So do you face any resistance when doing that adaptive reuse projects? Because like the subject is very iffy. So like do you face any resistance? Like if so, how do you deal with it? And do you have to design according to that?
Resistance, yes, because for example, this digital library, the original bungalow, it was kind of like recommended by another independent party before I came into the site. It was recommended by them that the building is not fit for occupation, and imagine me come in and say no, I don't agree. So that itself it makes me nervous at that point, because like, what am I doing? So because when you have to understand, we as professionals, when another independent party has said this building is recommended to be demolished. If you want to do any building, it should be demolished because the party probably had their own reason. They do not want to be responsible. So they say the best way is probably you demolish and build new. So these are the reality of what we have in Malaysian perception, because sometimes the risk of saving an old building and the whole trouble to trying to strengthen and all that, sometimes the easier path chosen is, I think let's just build new, easier, faster, safer, clearer. So yes, that was one of the resistance, and I felt quite lonely during that transformation. Lonely because nobody believed a library without books could work, and nobody believed that what we were trying to champion would really be successful. So at that point, because no one has done Penang, no one has done library without books. So as an architect, we strengthened the brief. The brief only asked for reading spaces, but we strengthened it by adding a playground, a cafe, a bakery, and a hall, and just to revive the library as a communal building, that how it used to be. So, students that nowadays, at that point around the library, everyone was going to McDonald's, Coffee Bean, to hang out until school breaks over. So now it's becoming a hype. Of course, pre-COVID, it was really filled to the brim. So during the 2 years of programming and building, yes, there were a lot of doubters. There were a lot of skeptics who thought it is a gimmick thing that will never happen. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, oh my God, yes. So I think, yeah, because like people often want to take the easy way out. And it's like, I like how you really like just say, you know what, just challenge that. Like, why not, right? But
I
even
can't
though it,
sleep at night, when you do that.
yeah,
Yeah, for 1 year, I couldn't sleep.
oh my God. But I think, yeah, as us like architecture students, right? I think we also face the same like concern, like, hey, do we really dare to challenge? Like sometimes our tutors mention all these comments and then we still have to be ourselves. So I think there's one question that really relates to that, which is like, um, yeah, this person agreed with, like you say, like to be empathetic to the original of the building and to be also understanding of its history. However, like, should we also be involving our own identity and like the designer or artist inside us to design something true to ourselves?
Okay, right. This is a very interesting question.
Mm.
To me, my three principles of my personal practice and also my own direction as a designer is be humble, be honest with the brief, be honest with the site, and also respect nature. So how I deal architecture is there shouldn't be any ego on the architect side. So far to date, most of the intervention that I've carried out are all site specific. None really come from, oh, because this is something that I believe in. My so-called heroes of architecture are Tadao Ando, Zaha Hadid. I read every page of Zaha's writings and works during my student days. So can you imagine Zaha Hadid and Tadao Ando? Those are very two different directions. But yet, when I do my own architecture, I didn't feel compelled to do something that, oh, this is my signature. So in the opposite, I felt compelled to respect nature and just make things better and inspired by the site. For example, the digital library has a lot of trees. I say keep the trees, and to me, what's more damaging is us architects imposing our own ideas, like, okay, my styles are always maybe white box and floating pilotis, and everywhere I go I must have white box. So to me, my humble side feel that you just need to respect site. So the other projects that you can see probably on my profile is Harmony Center. So again, it is all driven by what the site needs, what the brief needs, merge that and give the clients what they need and what the site require. And you don't really see much of the architect's ego in my works, except that I really want to bring in honest spaces with light. You want the space to be felt like everyone felt the delight there. So it was never, I don't know, I probably have to think about this, but to date, I've never really have come to struggle on what's my identity. To me, it's all about the site.
Mm. Yeah, it's like a very humble approach to all your designs.
Mm.
Mm. But yeah, anyways, but I think someone here is actually quite curious because you're very humble and empathy in design, right? So what are your own personal opinions on like flashy facades that are quite overwhelming?
To be honest, I think the money spent should be, if it's a public building, then those are public funds. So flashy facades should be really meaningful and beneficial. All right. But of course, we have the Bilbao effect where, Gary's building rescued the entire town, before Bilbao, the town was struggling. And when Frank Gehry built his famous building at Guggenheim, and everyone started going there, transformed the whole city to a thriving economical tourist place. So it has to have a good impact. But otherwise, I don't really reckon it's necessary to have a flashy facade. Unless you're certain that it's going to, save the whole city from poverty and elevate the economic status with architecture.
Mm. Okay. All right. So I think we're almost running out of time. So I'll ask like one more question. There's someone that's asking for advice. Like, I'm a heritage conservation like a student myself. So like, what do you suggest to students when they want to study heritage conservation in master? Like, which university or what requirement is needed, or what advice would you give them?
Oh, so should I be saying where I'm teaching? Later, Dr. V will not invite me again.
Okay, maybe. I mean, maybe you want to give them some advice, like what should they be looking out for and all that.
But I know students who actually benefit a lot by studying in Taiwan in heritage appreciation. But unfortunately, I understand if you study architecture in Taiwan, it's currently not recognized yet. But I know students who tell me that, you know, it's an amazing vibe there because of the sensitivity. But in terms of what you need advice to study master's heritage, I guess look forward to a bigger scope of heritage projects. Like I said, there are a few different micro categories. Either is conservation. You know, conservation is a different ball game altogether. Adaptive reuse. Adaptive reuse is a little bit of both, trying to connect the past and you make it happening for the future. So have a bit of broader mindset on that. And hopefully whatever that you're studying, I personally feel, I always encourage my students to believe that, you know, whatever they do in their architecture career, if done right, it can actually make the world a better place, even though that thesis and research. So they should really remember that.
Okay, awesome. I hope that answers that person's question. And what a great way to end this Q&A session with like an inspiring ending. But yeah, to our viewers, to our Facebook viewers, or like our audience here today, don't worry. Continue to ask your questions, as we will also have a Q&A discussion session between our two speakers at the very end. So yeah, feel free to ask along your questions. But yeah, so thank you once again, Architect VU. That was a very, very amazing session.
Thank you, Ryan.
That comes to the end of our Q&A session. Before we move on to the next session, could I request for everyone to switch on their cameras as we take a group photo together? Wow. Come on, everyone, don't be shy. Switch on your cameras. You guys will look amazing.
Oh, I see a familiar name there. See a few names that I know.
That's awesome.
All right. So should I start? Are more people going to turn on their cameras?
All right. We've got more. We have our head of school, Dr. V, here as well. Hi, Dr. V.
Okay.
I think obviously you can. Hey, Mr. Prince, Architect Prince is also here.
Hello. Okay, so I think I'll start.
All right.
On the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. So, okay. One more time. 1, 2, 3. Okay.
Awesome. Thanks obviously for the group photo session. Once again, thank you, Architect VU, for the session. Do stay on. I'm sure there are more questions waiting for you. All right. So, okay, awesome. Now, let us move on to our next session. Okay, so let's welcome our second speaker, which is Amy Liang. So, Amy Liang, she is the founder and designer who runs a solo studio called Studio Coco Kacang. Hearing that name already sounds so fun, right? But yeah, anyways, she believes that design is a multi-tool. Its work involves furniture design, interior design, architecture, and many, many more. All right, so without further ado, let us welcome Amy up on stage to share her works. All right, the floor is yours, Amy.
Thanks, Ryan, and hi, everyone. So I share my screen now.
All right, can.
Can you see my screen?
Yep, can.
Okay. All right. The project that I'm going to share will be more to work on how to remodel the building for new needs or new users. So it will involve not just the building itself, it will involve some other things also there. So I will share. So one of the project I done is the 3 years old cafe. It's actually and then this is actually the neighbor behind us. And then from the inspired by this view, and then it actually give me some idea for the facade design and locations. So this is the building built in 1920. So it's about 1920. So it's about 100 years building. And then this view is captured through the Google Map in 2015. So after that, I think the owner that painted it, so it get better. And then so from there we continue to develop it. So this is the project. And then actually the images are from Ryan Square Peg, because after they just launched for about 1 month and then had to, because of the MCOs, they had to stop. Then so I don't manage to go and take pictures. So for the front, for the facade, instead to treat it as a facade, we actually turn it to become like a garden. And then for the side, the building itself actually comes with a courtyard, and then we bring down the wall and then expose the courtyard to the outside. Because this building, it was a private house, and then now it's become like commercial use building. So the usage different, so they no longer need the privacy, the wall to secure privacy. So by taking down the wall, we actually expose the kitchen to the view also, which is actually the first image you see in the cafe behind us. And then we see all the greens, which is alongside our side elevation there. So I suggest the client to actually, instead of to put the entrance at the front, we move to the side. So we move our facade to the side and it become a very long facade. So people get into the garden one, which is the courtyard facade, and then they only go to the counter. So the experience will be actually totally different. So you go to the counter, you order, you decide you want to go to the front garden, or go back to the courtyard garden, or move forward to the level 1. And then, so this is the level 1. So we also place their signage at the side elevation. So this is some pictures, and the entrance actually just next to the their logo, their signage. So actually here is the entrance to the courtyard garden. Then the round window here actually is to expose the kitchen, because they do bakery. So I was thinking maybe people can see how they decor the cake and things, and then at the same time they can have view to the very nice trees at the side. And then the second one actually is to connect the dining area to the side. And then so this is the closer view. And here actually is another window to actually expose the counter area to the front facade also. to connect. And then the surrounding flag actually is part of their logo. And then from the side, you can actually see the surrounding face also. And then this is the front garden. And then we also do some furniture for the cafe. And then this is actually something you can join or separate them for a bigger group or smaller group. And for the furniture, outdoor furniture in the gardens. So actually it's a long bench, and then at the two ends, it's actually you can move out to become a coffee table, or it's actually a stool also, or it can become a coffee table on top of the bench. And the same concept also apply at the courtyard garden there. So with the long bench, and then you can actually see bigger group or smaller group, you can spread or join. And this is actually the idea comes from some of the form of the existing arch in the building. And then the platform here, the timber platform here, because for the level 1, the floor actually is the original timber floor, but some actually in the poor condition. So we replace the timber here to the upstairs. And then I also work from site for about a week to observe the sunlight and the things outside. So for the first floor, we actually remove the rooms and some of the extension from the previous tenant or owner. So to become like a dining area or event space to the area. So this is one of the view with the high ceiling and the sunlight, natural sunlight. And then this is actually at the ground floor counter. So, I didn't get that. So this counter actually sandwiched by two gardens, the courtyard garden and the front garden. So the second project is a paper plate printing warehouse in Bangsa, inside APW. And then paper plate actually is the landlord. And then breakfast stick, I have the two clients at the same time. Breakfast stick actually is the tenant. So I do the ID for them. And then for the paper plate, I remodel the warehouse. So this is the original warehouse. And then some of the wall we have to remove because it's already in the poor conditions, a bit run down. So the idea was the client thinking to actually, this is the warehouse itself, a long one. The client thinking to actually separate them divide them to few units and then sub-rent to the tenants or potential tenants. And after study about the site, we are knowing that they are actually planning to do a pocket park in their compound, a small park in their compound. So I suggest why not we make it in different sizes for the warehouse. They divide them in the different sizes, just like the clothes. You have S size, M size, L size, and then because the original building, they have this door shutter at the front. So if move the door shutter in between the units, so if the L decided to expand bigger, so by rolling out the door shutter, it become like the XL. And then if you want to expand furthermore, and then become double XL, so it's flexible. And then after that, we also remove some of the wall. So the garden can actually happen in between the space. And then we also created more corner unit, and the lock end become like a bungalow unit. So actually so this is after removing the some of the wall here. And the picture actually still not the time still not really completed. Here we still got something to do. And then so this is the window. We try to, because the main facade they facing the main room, facing to the Jalan Ryong, actually is something very very simple and humble, just aggregate itself. And the aggregate actually is from the gardens. So the aggregate in the garden and the wall actually is the same stone. And then and because it was a warehouse, and then if you've been there, you can if you go, you can see the paint still on the floor, and then the column actually is existing, and then the machinery is still there. Because I think the beauty of the project is the past, the history. And then because there's one time a lot of like a trend, people do warehouse concept under construction concept. So, but this is actually a real warehouse, and then it's actually not pretending as a warehouse. So I think to keep it, and then it can tell the story itself. And then this is actually behind, below here actually is an M&E room. And then by studying about the height, so we make this as a balcony to go to the tea house. They call it tea house. It's actually a very small area. It's something like you can pre-book the space for meeting, for family gathering, and then you order any, you can order food from any F&B nearby, because it's a F&B built. I think they have about 5 to 6 different F&B in the area, so they can serve you there. But now they already get a permanent tenant, so it's easier to handle things. So this is a picture after about a year, so the trees and the plants grow more mature. And then this is the view from the main road. So this is now, say, the balcony and the tea house. And then the tenant, one of the tenants called Breakfast Steve, they actually appoint me as their ID. So because inside active value compounds, they actually do a lot of like events in different times. So I was thinking to make this window can be fully open, and then so they can connect to the events outside. And this one, the layout, the height actually is just nice as same height as a bar stool. So in normal day, it's not encouraged to sit, but when they have events, actually it's just nice to sit there. So sitting is like along the perimeter of the log M. So this is the window, purposely to place this here because wanted to connect to the first cafe in the compound, because the facade is too quiet, and then also worries that people doesn't know that something happened behind the wall. So we're thinking, seeing that people will come to the cafe, and then maybe they can through the windows, and then they can see there's something happen at the other side. And then at the same time, the window here is also can be like, you can put what is their special menu, or during the Christmas, they can have a very big Christmas tree graphic, things like that. So, and then inside, this is actually a backdrop of the counter. So instead to do something like feature, this is actually, because this cable tray, they have many sizes. And so we choose the one we want, the right one. And then by given the hinges, it becomes the storage to the tenants. So, and then because the tray itself is perforated tray, so by having the lighting behind, it's become like a feature also. And then the light bulb actually is, this is actually a exterior lighting also. And then we bring the exterior lighting to the interior, so we blur the line in between the outside and inside. And then this is actually the seating, and then the time still under construction, and then they have the events, buka puasa, bazaar, and then people actually tapao and start to sit there. And then so sometimes it feels quite touching when we found that without telling how to use, and then people already know. And for the log M actually is because each unit here, they have at least 2 facades, the one facing to the main road, the one facing to the events area. And if you are the corner unit, and then you have 3 facades, front, back, and side. And then for the log end, they have 4 facades. the one facing the Pub Cafe, and then the one facing the main road, their entrance actually is located at the middle of the gardens. So actually purposely want to force the people walk toward this side, and then so they can discover more cafe at the other side. But some people, they already know, so they take a shortcut after that. And then so the other facade is the, already the manual on the side. So we did some mock-out and experiment for the stone wall, and then also different entrance and windows for different units. And then also beside planting the tree to the ground, and then we also planting at through the platform, because the ground itself is the best compared to the pot. And then the Royal Press is another project in Malacca. It's a polyglot letters press museum. At first, I actually just involved in their workshop design workshop project. They want to do it in Bangsa, because the one in Malacca, they need to actually close for about 2 years to do the restorations. So they're thinking if people want to know about the printing, and then at least they can come to their another printing warehouse in Bangsa. So this is the lead. Actually, one tray is actually about 5 to 7 kg. It's really heavy. It's actually quite tough to move around. But because this area is inside APW, they actually do a lot of events. And then during different events, they might set up for, they need to do a setup, and then they need to move the things in and out. So I was thinking, if everything comes with roller view, for example, the display itself comes with a roller view, and then the tools box itself comes with a roller view, and then with the cover, and then also even the storage, and this is also a stool also. So, and then all this furniture actually come with the depth is actually the same. So it's something like this. You can actually arrange like a mahjong, a peri mahjong. You arrange based on your need. You want to start from printing first, display first, or you want to create the shortcut for the workshop. So this is some picture of their workshop. And then, so after that, I joined them for the museum in Malacca. Before I joined, architect Sawing already designed, starting the design for the project to restore and to design the space and buildings. So itself actually, when I was there, already have 6 gardens, courtyard. So also continue to develop the space together. Wow, the thing is, we are thinking maybe for the 2nd floor, we can actually do like a library. So people can actually 24 hours library, and then so it only happens at the front, because at night they need to close the section. So with the spiral staircase here, they can go out to the the library in the level 1, because they are printing company. So they have a lot of like printing materials and books and things. So, and then another space for display, and then and also the makan place and things like that. So to bring back the courtyard, they need to actually have of the concrete in the courtyard in order for planting. So we actually found the old terracotta beneath the concrete. So and then we decided to use the terracotta. It's like to inject the old terracotta into the new material, because now the flooring is badly damaged. So we need to actually repair it. So the terracotta become the chipping to the new floor. At the same time, also become the tabletop material to the outdoor seating. So we had big trees also. Some of the like double story. So when you're at the first floor, you can actually reach the tree canopies. The linkage actually designed by Sawing architect. And then we go and choose the trees together. And also it happened here also in TRP office itself, because got display area and office and admin area. So also design the railing itself also is a sitting. So you can look forward to the space, to the garden below. So when it grow bigger, and then you can actually get closer to the nature. You can touch it. So this is another trace in another courtyard. So beside the and then they have the timber type also. So we display, and then like here is the office, and then here can look over to the other side. And then this is actually like a display, because they have like newspaper printing and things. So by having this one, we actually have different height of the how to say, stand. So you can decide either you want to have a tall one, and then with a stick, and then it becomes like a display. And then if you go to the lower one, move the stick to the lower one, and then it becomes like a divider. So you control the traffic. So this is something like by rotating, and then you can actually remove the stick, and then I also can replace this like a podium top. It become like a podium or a display to share, to introduce because they have a lot of printing machine also, so they can put the info at this display. So this is actually the library at the first floor, but the tables are actually foldable. So when they have events, they can actually fold and keep all together in the small space. So this is the table, and then when it flattens, and then it's just like a piece of plywood, maybe double layer of plywood. And then a lot of machines, and then all these are also machine covered by canvas, and then so we need to arrange it, so fill the space. And this is the other project called for. Actually, this is an ongoing project. I also looking forward to see what it will be turn out. So Feng Won Biscuit actually is themselves, last time they only sell biscuits. They actually, the business start from like 1909 from the motherland, from the grandparents' motherland, China. And then now the one in Jalan, the Chinatown, actually the 4th generations. And to sustain, they want to actually, besides just the biscuit, they want to do dim sum also. So this is their first address. Actually, when they started with only like the hawker store, then until like 1940 something, I think, and then they moved into their first shop, which is the first address. And then after that, they have to move to opposite. This is their second address, also in Jalan Han Lekil. And then now they have to move again because of the rental, and then actually quite tough during the pandemic now. So they are going to move to this building, and then it used to be a craft and gift shop, and then it's actually under the ground floor under Wisma Chakai. And then Wisma Chakai actually is quite interesting also, actually the land is donated by Captain Yap Wan Sing. And if you refer to the years, it's actually very long ago. But after that, their old building had to be demolished because at the Pudu station there, they need to actually expand the route. So they request the shop, the people along the shop had to rebuild their buildings. So they got to demolish and rebuild a new one. And then as you see, and then it's got some calculation mistake. So after that, in between two shops, they have this alley. You can see here, pointed here. And then after that, the authority just given to the Wisma Chakai. Give to Jalan Chakai. And then so I was thinking, because all these are actually just temporary structures, and then it's really dark because it's so I was thinking to actually remove the cover, replaced by transparent roof, so we bring the natural light into the space. So we re-expose the original building. This is actually at the ground floor. So on the left actually is after the column is the alley. Now it's covered by, this is the first floor. This is a ground floor, yeah. So they do temporary structure for the first floor also. If you go to the first floor, you can see the temporary roof. So suggesting them to actually change the material for the roof, bring the sunlight into the first floor and ground floor and first floor. And then for this one also is temporary structures. So also suggesting them to actually open out and then to become like an outdoor sitting. So front, side, and the back, we are open. So in the original building, able to reopen to be seen. So because transparent will be very hot, so we will actually bring in some trees. And this one we had to study again when they remove the roof, because you need to study the sunlight and then only can see what kind of trees or what kind of species of plants is suitable to the space. And then also very cute that all the furniture for this project are either from the existing furnitures, or the furniture from their sibling, or furnitures that because during the pandemic, many restaurants around the area closed down, so they brought over the furniture. So we are actually developed from there for the furnitures. And then the floor, the tiles, after we remove, and then we restart another layer of mosaic. And then this mosaic actually is the building original materials. So we are going to, we omit our new floor finish, and then we're going to actually use their original mosaic. And then after we remove the wall, we found that it used to be a kopitiam. So we are going to actually use the white tiles. But not everywhere got this white tile, so we need to actually apply more for the area that they cover. So, and then after removing the panel, we saw this metal frame. Yeah, they do have metal frame behind the panels, these display panels. So because now they appoint me as a designer for their ground floor, and then the first floor there will be come a cultural center, but just a temporary cultural center. They're going to move later when the other side is ready. So they said if I can do something for the first floor, because I removed their the temporary structure. So I was thinking with the existing, what we have, what we can find in the on site, even the plywood, although it will be old already, but I think it's okay. So we can do the railing, and then if the tabletop railing, and if the metal is not enough, we sorry. So if the metal not enough, and then we do more timber. One need, because worry about the children, it's too wide, and then the children might fall down to the ground floor. So so if not enough metal, and then they use more timber, timber is cheaper, and then it's really not enough, and then do a bigger one. And then but if can, I hope they choose this one. And then because in the future they will actually do either, I don't think it's gas panel, I think they will use back the corrugated transparent roof to control the air cons. And then if still got budget, and then they can use the metal, and then buy some 4x8 plywood, and then to become the table for display, or if lah. So and then this is actually a project I did for a competition, a furniture. So my friend called it Atto and Chuchu chairs. So by rotating, and then you can actually create a different height for children or adult, or you can actually pass to the next generations. So for this chairs only use 2 materials, same size for the front all are in same size, and then weaving can be anything, because this is a craft also, is an art also. So you can choose what you want to create for the pattern or design. So this is the thing. So I was thinking, to me, for example, to me a project actually is you see from macro to micro, micro to macro. Just like a chair, it can be a chair for one, a chair for few like the middle one, a chair for many, even it's actually part of the structure itself. And then it can be a loose furniture, it can be a furniture for interior, or furniture for exterior. So yeah, this is how like I do a project, looking at a project. So yeah, basically is that. That's all. Thank you.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Wow. Thanks.
You hear me? A very heavy rain here.
Yeah, it's heavy rain also on my side. But yeah, thank you, Amy, for that sharing session. That was very, very interesting. Thank you for bringing us on that journey. That was very, very interesting, especially when you discover all those different elements as you like start to tear down. And I'm like, wow. I see everyone in the chat like saying, wow, like archaeology. So
yeah, the beauty of old building is you never know what you're going to find. So sometimes this come, and then we had to change our plan, but it's very interesting.
yeah,
All kind of surprise or heart attack or things like that. But it's okay.
It's very exciting. It's really, really very exciting. I think we all felt it as when you showed us suddenly, you saw that, we discovered that it's the part of this stairs, this element, this material. We're like, wow, okay. Yeah, like unwrapping a gift, correct.
One of the thing, like the project in the breakfast, the paper plate, all the table are actually rubber wood. The reason why we're using rubber wood is besides the cost more friendly, and also because it was a rubber estate for the site. Yeah, so we try to relate back, although you can't tell without knowing the history, but at least, yeah, we do something.
Yeah, I think someone also mentioned in the chat, like the adaptive reuse of all the materials. They were very, very, interesting. All right, so let's go on quickly to our Q&A session, and let me quick start this question where I thought I saw this question on Slido. which was quite funny as well. But like, so for the breakfast teeth, the APW, was there any like, what was the thought put into creating the stairs? You know, because now that place, that stairs has been an iconic element for that place maybe. So was there any thoughts or inspiration that you put into those designing those stairs?
Actually, I thought the big window should be the the area that people want to take picture, and then the staircase become the spot. Actually, it's something like a services staircase next to the M&E room, and then to go to a balcony. And then I think it's actually not. Yeah, you can see somewhere else also something similar. So this is something that I also surprised.
It's like you have never expected that to be the iconic.
Maybe that corner is a quiet space, and then just nice to do any posting for picture, I guess.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I hope that answers that question. I guess you can just say like, sometimes we never know that design might be the most special element into that user's eyes. Okay, next question. I'm seeing this question. Seeing how you design APW bunks, how you designed it from the big picture to the smallest detail like a cupboard. Like, what are your thought processes when going through with this project? Like, are there any aspects that you believe people often overlook due to this process?
You mean the APW, APW or TRP? So APW, right?
APW.
Okay. How I design, I actually not good in sketching. I always like do essay. I will talk to myself for this area, what I want to achieve, what I want to do, what I want to solve, and then actually working from this, I tell the client I want to go work from their office like twice a week during the design process. So it's all about reflecting the surrounding of the site. So everything actually the thought is from the site, and then the idea, actually everything is based on the site, based on the project brief, and then from there we develop to become the output lah. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. In that. Okay. All right. So I hope that answers that question. I think we're gonna run a little bit more off time already. So I would like to invite Architect BU to join in this discussion as well. So I'll be asking questions for both of you guys, and then both of you guys can answer the questions. Hi, Architect BU, are you here?
Hi, yeah, hi, I'm back here.
Awesome. Okay. So
well done, Amy.
Thank you.
A lot of hard sweat, tears, I'm sure. I feel you when you say you know, they demolish and you discover something. Yeah, that's when eyes rolling and heart attack. Yeah. Close to
okay,
that.
but it's fun also. Yeah.
Yeah.
Quite interesting. Yeah, it looks very exciting. Okay. First question that I'd like to ask. So what are the often overlooked challenges faced when it comes to adaptive reuse instead of conservation? Maybe Amy, you can start first.
I think it's again the structure itself is the main concern. Yeah. Sometimes it's like the Malacca project TRP, we have this termite problem. I still all right. Before that, Sawing Architect actually is involved first in the project, and then they're actually sketching their head, and then because had to think about the budget, and then had to extend the timeline again. So for me, I think the firstly is the condition of the building first.
Okay.
So yeah, and then the rest will be about the times, how to develop it, and then brainstorming, and then because the structure itself we can't avoid, we had to do something to it before we start anything. Yeah. If not, and then we do a new thing to it, and then we'll corrupt, and then yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think yeah, like what you mentioned, first and foremost is the condition of the building as well. And all right, then Architect BU, do you have anything to add on to that?
I definitely echo what Amy talks about structure. Very spot on that every time we adapt old building, we have to make sure it's safe for the second life, right?
Yeah.
So for me, the biggest question is always the use. The first use, say for original shop house or residential. Usually it's all right for, say, an occupant of 6 family members. And suddenly when say we want to turn the heritage bungalow into a public building, and then the client say, well, I want seating capacity of maybe 50 upstairs and, you know, or 60 upstairs, 40 up. And then suddenly you are looking at a higher capacity building. So the constraint is to adapt in terms of fire safety, escape, and also structural strength. So it always, you know, literally now, every time when I see an old building, is immediately asked, what is the capacity we are looking at? So, and engineers actually told me that there are some buildings that are having this gray area. Means if this is a continue to be a house for 6 people, it's not too bad, you know. At any time of the day, probably there's just 5 occupants upstairs, your own house, you're not going to have a party. But when you have it in the library, engineers get worried, the bomba get worried. So yeah, that's that constraint of changing use, safety wise.
I see. Yeah, okay. So I think both from this takeaway, the question is like, to answer the question, so basically it's like more on considering the condition, the safety, everything, and understanding how will actually the people use those spaces and yeah, building. Okay, all right, next question. Because of this ongoing pandemic, has there been any impact or influence from this ongoing pandemic to you guys designing and doing adaptive reuse? Maybe Architect BU, you can start off this question.
Well, old buildings, naturally, those days, we have this love affair with aircon nowadays, right? Because world getting warmer. So the old houses, those days were made to have a very passive way of cooling. Means they have air vents, they have thick walls, and windows, very good cross ventilation. So I felt the COVID has reminded us again the importance of natural ventilation, natural lighting. And if we all just take a second look at all the old heritage buildings around the cities that you see now, well, the architects, the architectural design in those days put a lot more care because aircon was not that affordable at that time. So simple things like air well, you know, where you have that stack effect. Even the Malay house is a very iconic example of how we can actually do good buildings, not relying on aircon. So I thought, yeah, that's my reaction. It reinforced the whole importance of natural ventilation with this COVID situation.
Okay. Amy, do you have anything to add on to that? Like, has there been any influence or impact for you?
One thing come to my mind is I found that for the gardens, people start to do like herbs garden. They plant food. So this is actually changing also during the pandemic.
Oh, okay.
It's really quite nice, yeah.
I see. Wow, okay.
On their own food.
So like the buildings that you they plant their own food into their gardens, is it?
No. They didn't do that. But from what I'm reading and what I see, and then I found that people actually plant more after the pandemic. Yeah, they grow their kitchen gardens and
okay.
Which is quite interesting.
I see. Okay. Wow. Okay. Thank you for that answer. All right. So let me look at Slido. Okay, there's one question directed to Architect BU. Because Architect BU, since you came from you did like 16 years, you designed high-rise buildings and everything, right? So like, how did you use your high-rise experience and skills for adaptive and suddenly go on into doing adaptive reuse in your projects?
Sorry, that's the second line. What's the last sentence?
Oh, sorry. Like, how do you use your experience?
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah, this last sentence.
Like, how do you use those and then for adaptive reuse in your projects? Like, how do you integrate all the
Oh, okay. We have a very interesting question. Sometimes I feel that things happen for a reason, that I feel that I would never be ready to do the challenging adaptive reuse projects that come my way if I had not done high rise. So somehow I thought, universe works in a very funny way. So high rise taught me a lot about building services. And after you do, I've done 8 high rise in that single period of 8 years. I was with a developer and I was the HOD churning out the design. So doing high rise in that 8 years literally gives the ability of understanding building services like A to Z. Because if you can handle 60-story means everything already, literally you already know how far electrical design can go. So I thought that I unconsciously was relying on that strength because Digital Library was the first public building that I attempted to rescue. And I did not fall on to any preconceived set of rules. I merely knew that I wanted to save the building, and it was using that set of understanding, like the ability to scan the old buildings. Yeah, so to scan for services, so there's always a mental checklist. And if I had not had the enough strength in building services, I felt rescuing a building would have been tough for me, for at least the buildings that I was looking for. So and I continued to work with the consultants that I work with in the high rise, and I could see that they once they can handle big scale, because small scale restoration and renovation, we all must know, even in the our LAM, our stage of fees, is actually classified the same complexity category as an airport. Okay, this is a bit of a practice issue, but fees complexity category for airport and renovation belongs in the same highest complexity of works. So that's my response. So never underestimate that rescuing building is as straightforward, as romantic at how Amy has shared with us. But I can visualize all the pains going through. There's never a straightforward path. You can never draw. You can never prepare. And I really admire her. She mentioned she was working in one of the site. So I said, spending time to understand the building, and yeah, these are the small things that, not everyone knows.
I see. Yeah, like I think what Amy mentioned in the slide, like the micro to the macro to the macro to the macro to the micro.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. This one question. This question a lot of people like on Slido. Okay, this is gonna be a quite. You guys can answer if you guys can choose to not answer if you guys don't want to. But someone here asked the both of you: are you recruiting interns currently? We are interested.
I thought they're asking Amy because her work is also passionate and intimate.
I mean, I think both of you guys can answer.
Okay, we are always open for interns, no problem. That's my answer. All year through.
My answer is my studio is not ready yet, still small, solo, so yeah, not at the moment. But
you have fans already. I mean, you have fan club already. You better open a fan club.
Actually, I have a plan. Yeah, maybe sometime next year. I'm just not sure yet. Yeah.
Okay, so I hope that answers that person's question. All right, so it's 4 o'clock. I'm gonna end this session by asking one final question. Do you guys have any final words or advice to all our students here today, especially to the graduating students or maybe the people who are just starting architecture or going into design? So maybe Amy, do you want to start first? Any final words or advice?
I think maybe Architect Biyu first. Sorry.
Okay, Architect Biyu, would you like to go first?
I always say this, that it's good that young architects are very passionate. Continue to have these wild creative ideas. Always question, come in and try to redefine things. But know that architecture is a long marathon. It's not a sprint. I say this because many of the graduates may have some misconceived perception of how the world out there. So it may disappoint you to know that some awesome high-rise project will take 4 years to complete. So, and at that time when I graduated, I wish somebody told me this, but I went out there thinking that I could do a lot in a short time, and I was so painfully disappointed. Construction takes years to finish, especially those big, exciting ones. You want to work on a project like airport, then it takes 8, 9 years, cannot finish. So it's a marathon. So if you guys are in sports, how do you handle a marathon? You start off with a steady, strong start, but you don't outrun yourself. So when you're tired, rest and continue to water that passion. And I think Amy is a great example of passion in one solo heroine. We need more of heroes like Amy to inspire us, because it is not easy. I can feel that because it's not easy, especially if it's doing this solo. So know that it's going to be exciting, but it's not going to be easy lah. Okay, so be strong, be brave, and pace yourself up. Your time will come. So in your years of working, what you want to do is learn as much as you can. It's all about learning. If you guys are at mid-20s, then learn, and by 30 is where you should come all round full circle. And your time will come to change the profession into a really critically innovative profession. Yesterday talk was very engaging, I felt. And we talk about how the industry now is so stifling, like it's all about services, professional service. But I think you guys are the future generation that can change things. So have that ambition now, and then it takes everyone to make a change lah. Sorry, was that a bit too long? So it's a marathon, yeah, guys. So just remember that, don't burn out. It will be very sad if you burn out. So if you remember why you started architecture, I believe most of you, when you joined architecture, you had this great ambition to make a change. You really want to make the change. And sometimes along the way, after 5 years, it wears you down. After 10 years of work, it wears you down. If I can suggest one sentence that you should paste on your mirror is, remember why you started. I have that. So I've been doing this for 20 years. So if you don't have passion, it's very easy to quit on architecture. So that's my takeaway. Have passion, okay? Don't quit.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you,
Amy?
Architect Biyu.
I take some road for you.
Yeah, I do always feel to resign actually every time that come to like a frustrated situations. But I will say, if you give up, and then if you just think to complete the thing instead of to perfect the things, not say perfect, to try our best to complete the things, we will end up we will literally give out end out, because if we put effort, and then we will see the result at the end. And then if we just do because of doing, and then treat it as a job, as a career, and then without the passion in it. So I don't think I want to like burn the midnight oil, and then things. So it's very normal for me, it's very normal. Always want to feel to resign. And then I always tell myself, it's okay, hold on, see after this project, and then we think again. So after complete project, and then we see again, say, still okay, maybe try one more. so yeah. So macro, micro. So
yeah.
Step by step.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's the toughness to be an architect. You never say die, right? Today you complain, then we wake up tomorrow and we are still at it again.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Amy, and thank you after that to you. I think what you guys have said also echoed like yesterday's session. They also said the similar thing. So I think there's a trend here. But I think it's what really pushes us as students, as the professionals as well. But
Maybe Dr. Veronica can say something. I can see her from here.
Dr. Veronica.
She's with us today.
We can't hear you, Dr. V.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I can now.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It's been so inspiring on a Sunday afternoon. And I think I can see through, like Ryan, Aoxiang, obvious, their eyes are like, suddenly they wake up and they think, okay, I could actually do this. And I'm not the only one. I think hearing from everyone further reinforces what we are actually doing every day. And just like the rest, I'm in education now, but when I wasn't, I had to ask myself every day, why am I doing this? And I think if we all have a purpose, like why we first started, the purpose will drive us to where we want to be. And I've learned this word, which I always tell people around me, including students. Sometimes it is just not yet. The time will come. Some run faster, and maybe you see them there. And I think it's not about a race. So sometimes you just tell yourself, oh, it's not yet time for me. But it doesn't mean that, that time will not come. So always remember your purpose. And thank you, everyone. I had a great time today. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. V, for those kind words as well.
Yeah, well said. Beautifully said.
All right. So the time has come to the end of our session. Once again, I would like to thank both our lovely speakers today. Just now, before the session, Architect V was like, female power as well.
Girl power.
Girl
Dr.
power.
V? Is it a coincidence or?
Yeah. So once again, thank you. It was a really, really inspiring and amazing session. I personally enjoyed it a lot. I was so inspired by both of your sessions. So yes, once again, thank you so much. And that's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Dr. V done a great job. You guys did an awesome show. You should be proud.
The students did all the work. The graduates, they did all the work. I'm just a supporter.
Yeah, there's a supporter that's for all this. So well done.
All right. We're excited to visit both of your works. So both of your buildings and designs. So yes, and Amy, we're also excited to see your upcoming one, which is also ongoing. So once it's done, we'll be sure to visit as well.
Thank you. Myself also can jump.
All right. So before I wrap up the session, all right, my team, next slide. All right. Before I wrap up the session, once again, thank you everyone for coming and supporting us today. And fear not, there will be more interesting and upcoming sessions coming right up. And that will happen on the 9th of October, which is the following Saturday at 2 p.m., which will talk about neglected needs and enriching lifestyle, and about how we design for people and the human behavior and how we improve their lifestyles. And besides that, on the 10th of October, besides that, on the same day, on 10th of October at 2 p.m., we have another forum which will invite numerous architects, Architect Lidente, Mustafa, Michael Ching, as well as Sao In, to talk about practicing architecture. Like, what is your desired architecture firm to work at after graduating, unfolding the spectrum of pages of architectural practice, and many more. So if you're interested in that, do join us on the upcoming events as well, on the 9th October and the 10th of October, both at 2 p.m. We'll also be having our closing ceremony on the 10th of October, so be sure to be there. All right, moving on. And of course, we cannot forget the purpose. So feel free to check out our virtual exhibition featuring both the bachelor's and master's class of March 2021 at our website at www.taylorsartgrad.com. There's over 150 plus of works over there, so be sure to check them out. And if you haven't purchased, for our students as well, if you haven't purchased, we are also having our Missing Scenes booklet, which is available for both physically and ebook. And this will not just include our student works as well, it will include checklists, tips and tricks, interviews, everything. So it's actually will be acting as your guidebook in architecture as well, from experienced architects, seniors and masters and everything. So yeah, if you haven't placed your order yet, do place your orders now. And of course, we cannot forget our merchandisers. So we have our tote bags, we have our t-shirts, we have our stickers, and a lot of architecture students, are you really an architecture student without your tote bag? So yes, be sure to buy them at 18 ringgit each, both black and white. T-shirts, you want to look stylish? That's right, black color at 28 ringgit and white color at 33 ringgit. And stickers, these stickers there's a very special story behind these stickers where we talk about our studio life, and there's actually a special stickers that I love that is like error in saving file, which always reminds you to always save your file as you do your work. If not, you will be in a bit of trouble in the future. So yes, be sure to buy the stickers and place them on your laptop as a friendly reminder for your future projects. And with that, thank you so much. And that is the end of our session. So do follow our Facebook, do drop a like on our Facebook page at Missing Scenes, or follow us on Instagram at Missing Scenes. And we will be keeping you guys updated about our upcoming events, projects, and workshops through those social media. With that, that is the end of our session. My name is Ryan, the co-lead of this Missing Scenes, along with Ao Xiong. And yeah, I'm signing out as your host for today. So yes, thank you everyone for coming. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for coming. See you guys soon.
Okay, see you. Take care.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Architect View. Thank you, Amy.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you to our audience, and thank you to our Facebook Live audience as well. We'll see you guys soon.